Can you say hard hats, folks? Hard hats, lunch pails, steel-toe boots.
Anything short of a championship this year is a failure. Look at this boomer right here.
You've just got so much talent here.
Somebody said we need to apologize for Jaylen.
Can I quote the John? What are we apologizing for? What did we say? What did we do? Hey, Bobby Manning here. Welcome to an off-season edition of the Garden Report. Most of the crew is here.
The final portion of the program, okay?
It's okay, Sherrod. You can wear it.
Has that been by your side all summer, Sherrod?
It has literally been right here all summer, right next to me.
Just like the trophy, Tatum and the trophy.
Yeah, he's taking the thing everywhere.
My ring.
Josue Pavon, welcome back. Been a minute since we've talked to you. No Dalzell here as well. Sherrod Blakely, and I am Bobby Manning. And we're going to mostly talk Olympics here today. There's a couple of news items bouncing around. Maybe we'll talk a little Summer League toward the end, but we've been there. We've done that. And I'm getting ready for these Olympics, which look like they're going to be fun. Look like they're going to be competitive based off the exhibition slate we watched over the last month here. And it got going with the opening ceremony last night. A couple games in the books. I think Australia beat Spain, and there was another game earlier today too, I think. I haven't watched any of them yet. We'll get to, what is it, Greece and Brazil today, Sherrod, Josue? Yeah. So that's coming up. And the U.S. starts tomorrow at 11:15 against Serbia. They destroyed Serbia in the exhibitions. Jokic really struggled in that game, but he's obviously one of the best players they'll see during this stretch here. And let's face it, guys, U.S., if they win, it's going to be, all right, they won. If they lose, it's going to be an uproar no matter how it happens here. And they're in group play, so they can afford probably one loss here in this stretch of games to start. But it's going to be Serbia, going to be South Sudan, who pushed them pretty hard during the exhibitions, and Puerto Rico they'll see as well, who they did not play during the exhibition stretch. So this team's stacked, Sherrod. Sounds like Kevin Durant might come back here, add to it. And you got LeBron being LeBron. He was amazing in those exhibitions. Embiid has been a little clunky, but they got a ton of depth at center. And when you have Steph Curry, Jrue Holiday, Derrick White at guard, Anthony Edwards, Tatum off the bench, I'm not saying this is a dream team level roster here, but this is definitely one of the 3 or 4 best rosters they've had in their Olympic history.
I'm going to hold off on putting them on the Mount Rushmore of great Team USA's just yet, because they literally haven't won anything of significance yet. I think on paper, Bobby, you're right. I think this team is that good and should be talked about with that type of reverence going forward, but they haven't done anything yet. The fact that the highest paid player in NBA history is coming off your bench in Jayson Tatum says a lot about your depth. But I'm not quite sold on this team yet. I think that they are like a lot of superpower type teams where the better the opponent, the better they play. They had that nail biter against South Sudan, but they beat the snot out of Serbia, which is a better team. I expect the Serbian game to be a little bit closer. If they play South Sudan again, which because in their pool play they'll do that, they're going to destroy them. They're going to beat them by at least 30. I'm just going to put that out there right now, and that's how it should be. But I'm not quite ready to crown them yet. They haven't done anything yet, and they should be. Again, they should be the last team standing when all said and done. But the South Sudan game, the other close call they had, gave me reason to just kind of hit the pause button on just elevating them to top tier all-time great status.
Yeah, I'm with you, Sherrod. Definitely. I just feel like the other teams are going to look at that and say, wait, we can beat this team. You know what I mean? I think it's shown that they're vulnerable for sure, even though they did bounce back with that humongous win against Serbia. I feel like a lot of the other teams can look for those moments of vulnerability, and sometimes they do. I don't want to say play down to their competition, because we haven't seen a whole lot of, it hasn't been that many games to characterize them that way. But I just feel like in this type of competitive nature, this type of Olympic, just the fact that these teams have a chance to, like you said, Bobby, off the top, like if they lose, it's like the end of the world, if they win, it's like, oh yeah, you're supposed to do that. So every team's out there wanting to be that team, even a team like Puerto Rico, like teams that have come a long way from being taken more seriously, I guess, in these type of competitive tournaments. Those are the teams I wonder if they'll get the best out of the USA team. But again, yeah, I'm with Sherrod. You have to wait and see how this whole thing plays out before you crown them as one of the better teams. On paper, they look incredible. Obviously a lot of these guys are future Hall of Famers, and a lot of them are over 30 and experienced. But we have to wait and see how it all plays out. And I can't wait. I think it's going to be a really competitive Olympics.
Who would you start, Noah? They've started everybody at this point so far, and it feels like they're still searching a little bit for who that starting five is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would first say I think the starting lineup doesn't matter as much as I guess we're making it out to be. At the end of the day, it's more about what combinations they're going with and who they're closing with, and I feel like that closing group is probably not going to be the same as that starting group. But I don't like the kind of multiple guys that are not used to being role players sharing the floor together, like having guys like Anthony Edwards and Devin Booker and guys that are primarily have been scorers in their career sharing the floor together. So those are the combinations that I feel like we've seen too much of, where I'm like, there's not those connective pieces on the floor alongside the stars.
Noah's low on Edwards. I can just
I'm so
with
low.
this team.
I know, I can't stop. It's not that I'm low on him in general. I guess I'm a little lower than the average person, which is very, very high. But I just think on this type of roster, like what he brings is scoring, right? And there's other scorers as well that are going to be as effective or if not more effective than him. And I just don't view him doing the other little things that other players on the court have a long history of doing. That's my qualm. But I like Jrue Holiday as a starter. I think you have to start LeBron. I would start Anthony Davis. I think he's been probably the best player through the exhibition games. I don't really feel strongly about the other two. I mean, I guess you have to start Curry. So there's like one open spot. I think those four you have to start.
I was going to say, I think we pretty much we figured it out. There you go. They're just starting five.
There we go.
Just got missing one.
Durant's probably a slam dunk if he plays.
Yeah, I mean, not if he hasn't played in a while, though. I would imagine that if he's going to get eased back into it, he'll come off the bench the first game. I don't know.
Well, this is the difficult thing here with this team, Sherrod, because you do have some guys whose games are a little more oriented toward isolation play or being the guy. Edwards certainly, and B, I think, has struggled with that a little bit so far. And then you have a bunch of complimentary guys who might not be the ones with major cachet or status here. And honestly, all three Celtics, I think you can point to in that sense, even with Tatum just winning the championship and making his mark in the league over the last couple of years. It feels like he's kind of been pushed to the side here in many ways in favor of LeBron, Curry, Durant. To me, you see LeBron holding the flag. You see who started for this team so far. I guess Embiid has earned a little bit of status over Davis, who would probably have more cachet with this team. But it's the older guys. It's the ones who've been around this USA program for a little bit. We can go back to the whole Jaylen thing and talk about that a little bit. But this is about the guys who have been in the NBA, who have been the faces of basketball. It's the LeBron show. It's the Curry show. Embiid, I think you could probably move out of that lineup if you really need to here. But this is going to be a tough one for Steve Kerr, Sherrod, because there's just so many personalities here. There's so many superstars. And this is the challenge, or I guess the good problem to have with a team like this is you have the best talent in this field by far, but you have to manage it. And so far, even though they haven't lost, they've struggled a little bit to manage how much talent is here on this roster and how many different types of players they have. Oh, you're on mute, Sherrod.
No, you're on mute.
There we go. Steve Kerr should be the ideal coach to handle a situation like this when you look at the types of talent that he has not only coached, but that he's won at the highest level with. And so I think he's going to figure out how to manage it effectively. But if you're when you look at Tatum and some of the younger guys on this team, it's kind of like, you know, when that varsity team comes together and you've got like the 2-year starter and then you've got the first-year starter. They may all be on the same team and they may all have a similar status, but there's a very clear and undeniable difference between the one who's been there, done that, and has done it as the kind of the face or front of the group versus a guy who's probably going to be in that role at some point, but maybe not quite there yet. And if you're Jayson Tatum, and if we're really being honest and candid about this, he's cool just going on a ride. He's got a championship. He's going to make more money than anyone in NBA history. If you're telling me that I need to take a backseat to Kevin Durant, okay, I'm cool with that because I got the one thing that everyone said I couldn't get is the championship. And so I think he's okay. Jrue Holiday has shown that he's the glue guy that every team needs. And the Team USA is no different. And Derrick White is in many ways kind of like Jrue Holiday 2.0, a similar player in terms of the intangibles that he brings to the game. And so I think whoever they go with, the Celtics contingent is cool for whatever role they're going to be asked to play because they don't have anything to prove. I think Anthony Edwards clearly has something to prove in this. I think some of those younger guys, this is their opportunity to show themselves as being more than just a pretty good NBA player. They want to be an Olympian. It gives them a certain status that they don't have and that they have not been able to establish in the NBA. And Noah, I love you, but I got to push back on the Edwards. Oh, Noah.
You and the rest
He's
of
going to be the most polarizing guy.
Yeah, it's not just you, Sherrod. Not just you.
No, he's not polarizing. Everybody loves him except for me. I don't think it's polarizing.
The way you feel about him is how I feel about Devin Booker. And the reason why I can't get down with Devin Booker is because he doesn't play defense. He's not even trying to.
True.
Not even trying. And at least with Anthony Edwards, he tries to play defense. And Anthony Edwards, he talks a lot of trash. And I'm okay with that. Most of the time, he can back it up. When he does it, you flame him for it, and he takes those hits like a true competitor would. Devin Booker, he doesn't take those hits because he's literally nowhere to be found defensively. So it's not even – you can't even, like, criticize him heavily for that because he doesn't even play – he doesn't even give you enough effort to criticize him about his team.
It's incomplete. It's incomplete, Sherrod. Yeah.
It's incomplete.
I don't know how much we're going to see him.
What's that?
I don't know how much we're going to – I mean, some of these guys are going to have to sit down, too, which is going to be another challenge.
I hope he's one that sits quite a bit. Because I don't want to see Devin Booker out there. He's the one guy of all the people that you can point to and say, man, could Jaylen be in that guy's spot? He's the one guy that I would have had in there instead of Jaylen. I would have in there instead of Devin Booker.
Well, I was just going to bring up Jaylen because
I know. Well, obviously.
They need Edwards just because he's been the guy who's been able to just put his head downhill and score when they need to. LeBron's done that late in the games. But that's that Jaylen role that we saw with the Celtics, Josue, is when they really need a basket, when they need someone to break an offensive slump or whatever they're going through in the half court. He's been able to do that. A couple buzzer beaters at the end of quarters, just aggressive plays, and it might lead to some isolation-heavy offense, might lead to some stagnancy at times, but more than anyone else in this roster, he's just been able to put the ball in the basket at times here. And I wouldn't put him in the starting lineup, but off the bench with Bam and Davis, that combo that's been so dominant, and a point guard out there, could that be Derrick White? We saw it against, I think it was South Sudan late in that game.
No.
They need Edwards here, for better or for worse, I think.
For better, Bobby, for better.
Well, when you put him in with those lineups, though, that's a great balance, especially with someone like Bam Adebayo. Guys like Anthony Davis, like they're a matchup nightmare for a lot of these teams. So I think that's where you're able to see him shine, especially scoring in transition. But yeah, I mean, at the end of games, I wonder if that's something that
is he out there Steve for the Kerr, end of games? That's
right? Is that someone Steve Kerr going to turn to? If maybe he's looking for some consistency on offense, and you put him in for a few plays and see what happens. Yeah, I can see that, but I just think it's going to come down to the defense, though, at the end of those games, and if he's hot, though, it'll be hard for Kerr not to keep him in there, So you wonder how long he stretches that, at the very end of games. We'll find out.
He's a better defender than Curry, and if you're in a late game situation where you need your best defensive unit out there, he's a consideration. There's no doubt about that. But Jrue Holiday in that situation is a lock to be out there because you don't have a better perimeter defender than him. I would even go with Derrick White too. If we really need to get stops and get out and set our offense.
Down by 6. Something like that. Yeah, put D White in there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if we need to get a stop and they got a perimeter guy that's hot, why would we not have the best shot blocking guard in the NBA out there on the floor?
And who's
an all NBA defender. So
he amazed me in the scrimmages for sure, which Could that lead to a role for him? I thought he was going to be a guy who would just come down and sit for this roster, be happy to take the back seat to the other stars here, but they needed him in that South Sudan game, and he was great connecting with Davis.
More than just eat croissants, Derrick White. I thought that's pretty much all you would be doing. But you're right, Bobby. They need more.
Even as one of his biggest relievers, he surprised me out there. I want to take a quick break to shout out Game Time.
I can see Derrick White being a huge croissant lover. I can see that.
Oh, absolutely.
This is pretty cool, the role he gets to have with this team. I want to get to that. I want to get to Tatum as well as Holiday's role with this team. But first, shout out to Game Time, our official ticket partner here at CLNS Media for the summer. In the summer, there might not be NBA games or hockey games. Football is still a month or two away here, but they got you covered for baseball. And love baseball right now. We got Red Sox Yankees going on this weekend at Fenway. That's actually a tough ticket right now. So
what a game last night.
Amazing game last night. They're becoming a more fun team to watch. They got core extended, maybe making some deals next week at the deadline. So if you want to go to a Red Sox game, you want to go to a Connecticut Sun game, their season rolling along. You got concerts, you got events, ton of concerts this weekend. I'm going to a couple myself, and I'm going to use the Game Time app. They are a official partner of accredited ticket partner of Major League Baseball, authorized ticket marketplace, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. They get killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat. That's my favorite feature on Game Time. And their lowest price guarantee takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets this summer. Save 60% off, up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. You got zone deals, all in pricing, as I mentioned. The seat views, you'll give you a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy. And if you find a lower price elsewhere, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets this summer with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. That's $20. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20. Game Time, last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So Noah mentioned it. Holiday's probably going to be a starter with this team. He's been that connective, important, a glue guy for this group. I'm interested in seeing what Tatum's role is, and White's just going to do what they need him to do, obviously, here. But Tatum, I feel like we're asking the same questions about him we asked the whole playoff run. He's been effective. He hasn't shot well at all, and he hasn't taken many threes during this stretch. And I don't know exactly night to night what his role is with this team. He could be a starter. He could come off the bench. He'll probably come off the bench if Durant's a starter. And off that bench, as we mentioned, is it Edwards? Is it White, Halliburton handling the ball? You get those two bigs, so he's kind of at that wing spot. And so far, Noah, I've mostly just watched Jayson standing in the corner, and I think he's more than happy to do that. I think he's been stressing sacrifice with this team just like he was with the Celtics. But I'm waiting for the game where he really makes his imprint on things, and maybe that's just beyond what his mindset is at this point, and he just wants to pass and play defense and do all these different things, and he's been effective doing that. But here we are again. Where's Tatum's shot? What's his role? Can he take over and dominate? It's like we're asking the same questions we did with the Celtics, and similar to the Celtics, this USA team, if they can all figure out their roles, probably looks like they're going to dominate.
Yeah, I think with Tatum, the question for me is if he's going to be able to the question for me is if he's going to be able to impact the game enough to warrant being one of the five guys that's down the stretch on the court, because this is such a stacked roster that you don't actually need him to be one of those guys. Like there's a good chance that he might not be one of the players that has to be in that spot, particularly if LeBron's playing the way that he played during the exhibition games, which personally I was a little surprised to see just how effective he was. And if he's able to keep that up, I think he kind of has that spot and role solidified. But what I did like out of Jayson Tatum in the exhibition games is that when he was attacking the basket, he was doing so really effectively and in a way where I think he was not able to go to do that during the regular season and during the playoff run with the Celtics because he has one guy covering him. And so he had flashes of like, if he could just keep doing this and driving to the rim and putting pressure on and making, throwing good passes out of drives. And I thought that he had those moments, but like a Tatum 3-pointer with a hand in your face on Team USA should really never happen. Like that's a bad shot on the Celtics, and that's an even worse shot on Team USA with the amount of options and talent that you have. So my thinking is just like, you just don't need him to do that. That's not his strength, even though he's had times in his career where he's been a really good shooter. At the end of the day, like he's not a sharpshooter, like that's not his thing, and you have so much going on in this roster that I don't think you need to see those kinds of shots. So I'm less concerned about like, can he shoot out of his funk the way that maybe we'll say in a few months, like he'll probably need to figure that out during the regular season, and more with like, is he going to be able to continue doing the things that he's uniquely good at, and not force the issue, because you don't need anybody like trying to find a rhythm. And maybe Steph Curry has earned the right to go 1 for 7 from 3, but that's pretty much it. You don't really need that on this roster.
I think Tatum is, well, first of all, Bobby, to your point, him staying in the corner, he's being Jaylen Brown / Marcus Smarted at that point if he's sitting in the corner waiting for the shot. That's kind of what those guys were doing. So Tatum is now on the receiving end of that treatment, it seems like now. But I think the biggest issue for Tatum at this point is motivation. I mean, what is really driving you to be great now when you know that at the end of the day, you don't need to be great in order to achieve your goal?
He might need a little break after his run.
And I think part of it, I think Tatum low key is thinking, you know what? We want to win another chip. And I kind of committed to this Olympic thing, and I want to be here, and I'm going to be engaged, but they don't really need me to go hard. I mean, they don't really need me to be great. They need me to be solid in whatever role they ask me to play. And as we've all pointed out, the roles of all these guys is evolving. No one really has a clear defined role. And to Noah's point about LeBron, I think LeBron did what old men tend to do when you're playing with a lot of younger men. Son, this is how you're supposed to play the game. I've showed you how to play the game. Now you go ahead and do it. We're not going to see the LeBron that we saw in exhibition games now that this stuff is real, because LeBron's like, the level that you need to play with, the effort that you need to give, I've shown you what that looks like in this environment. It's your turn, Jrue Holiday. It's your turn, Anthony Edwards. It's your turn, Devin Booker. Okay, maybe not Devin Booker. It's your turn, all you other guys, to go out and do that. So much Devin Booker shade. I've given you the blueprint. I've given you the cheat code. And Tatum, again, back to Tatum, he's good. Tatum is the one guy who literally has nothing to prove to any of these other guys, because all of them are playing for one thing, and that's an NBA championship. And last time I checked, there's only 3 guys on that team that can say that we are the champions today. And Tatum, Jrue Holiday, Derrick White. The rest, you've had your moments, but you're not that dude, or that, you're not that player now. Your team certainly isn't that team now. So I think Tatum, the biggest challenge he's going to have is just being motivated to be great, because they don't need that from him. And to be honest with you, I like the role that Tatum is in now, where he's just giving you a little bit of something to remind you he's a great player, but certainly is not overexerting himself and making it seem like I'm trying. This isn't like Tatum from a couple of years ago where he's trying to prove, I'm really good. I'm really, really good. We know that. We know that. And we know that you can win at the highest level. Now it's just stay healthy, get your gold medal, and come back and try to run it back again.
Right.
So, Sherrod, like I would say to that. Oh, go ahead, Josue.
Oh, no, I was going to say real quick, it's like he's the ultimate decoy until he's not. Because I do think he's going to have one of those games where he comes in and off the bench, second half, maybe gives you 10 straight points or something like that, and then we're going to be reminded of how good he is. But yeah, I'm with you, Sherrod. I mean, he's solidified. Yeah, go back to the bench. But he's solidified. These guys know who he is. It's not like the last time these guys got together, and remember when Durant sort of passed him the torch, being like, oh, this guy's up next, he knows there's plenty of Olympics in the future coming up, this is kind of maybe the last one for some of these guys. And I think he understands exactly where his role is on this team, especially coming off the championship. And I'm sure he's been reminding everyone, with the whole champ stuff and all those videos about when LeBron was like, oh, is that why you dunked on me? Because I didn't give you an autograph when you were 10. I love that stuff, man.
Yeah.
And real. That's a really cool, obviously a cool experience for everyone. But if you're Jayson Tatum, what a hell of a summer you're having right now. So again, I do think we'll get at least one of those games where you're like, okay, there's the Tatum game coming off the bench. But for the most part, he's gonna thrive in this role, but he's gonna do it in a way that it's not gonna be as flashy as some people might have expected going into this.
Were you gonna say, Noah?
No,
Yeah,
I
we're
was
gonna
just
say
gonna
my
say.
fault.
So I feel like no, you're good. I feel like my issue with the whole Olympic discourse is that I don't think anybody needs to show right now that they're great. Like that's not what the Olympics are about. It's this is like the one time where the reason the U.S. looks so vulnerable against teams that they should not is because you have guys with that same instinct that they have during the regular season as their stars on their team of being like, look, I'm the number one guy. Like, look, I can go create my own shot. And it's like, Team USA should be getting layups and open three-pointers. Like, that's what they should be getting because they have so much talent on this team. But that would also mean that none of you guys get your highlights and none of you guys get your step back, like, crazy shots that you hit during the regular season. When you watch the women's Team USA, I don't know if any of you guys have tuned in, but they're way better than the field, and they're playing like it because they find open. They in their one exhibition game that they had, they literally every shot that they had was an open layup or an open three-pointer, and they made them and they won by a lot. And so, to me, it's like I don't mind if Tatum scores 4 points a game, and probably we'll have to have this discourse of Tatum's not the face of the NBA. He only had 4 points a game in the Olympic run. If he's actually creating easy shots for players, and that's why I was so high on like how Derrick White looked for South Sudan because the whole game he was just getting people layups, and he, his box score was 1.45 assists. Like nobody's gonna be writing home about it, but his mindset was, I have like 4 stars on the team with me. I'm gonna get them easy shots, and I don't see enough guys so far on Team USA being like, I have 4 superstars on this team. Let me get them an easy shot. Instead, it's like you see guys being like, let me get in my bag that's made me a Hall of Famer. And Tatum's not really going to be one of those guys, I don't think, because he actually has a lot of practice of not doing that because he was just on a team that won a championship with that mentality. But like a guy like Steph Curry, who I'm one of my favorite players of all time, this is an adjustment for him because when has he ever been in this position where like he doesn't need to be taking crazy shots and he doesn't need to be, kind of carrying the entire offense the way that he has, especially in the last couple of years. And so that's my thinking. I just feel like the discourse around like, is Tatum going to assert himself is kind of the reverse of where I would view it. Whereas it's like, I think nobody should be playing with that intention. But it's not going to happen because it's the guys are on that roster. That's just
when they get out on the run, that's what they look like. It's unstoppable. And they've gone on some 22-2 runs and just game-changing kind of quarters, couple minute stretches where they look like that kind of team. But in the half court, when they have to run stuff, when they have to figure out the offense in a slower pace, that's when it gets a little clunky and guys have to figure out how to play together. And honestly, by far, in my mind, the best player on this team so far has been Anthony Davis, who's been able to get stops, get them moving. Bams look good at the 4. I think that's something worth watching. When we get into the regular season with the Heat, he hit 3 threes in a game, so he's been pretty good so far. So there's some stuff to take from this. Tatum, it's tough to take much from this. I think you all got good points about where he's at. Sherrod talking about him coming off the championship, laying back, deferring to some of these superstars, him playing a role. I think that's super valid. And yeah, he's probably going to be on the bench in many of these starting lineups, closing lineups, but there will be a game, I think Josue is right, where he gets it going. The one thing I'll say before we move on to the article about him, I don't know what's going on with the shooting. Noah, I don't know if you have any idea at this point or you've looked closely at it, or he hasn't taken many. That's still the part that's so hard to parse with it. But the three-pointer's non-existent for him right now, and that goes back to some of his shooting struggles in the playoffs. He was taking more in that role, missing a bunch. I said going into this tournament, I'd like to see him play more around the basket. I want to see him play more around the basket next year. So I guess it's encouraging in that sense that he's moving toward that role with this team. But I didn't want him to make 0 threes and take 2 or 3 a game. It's just not there for him right now.
But you know what, Bobby? Here's the thing, though. It goes back to, I think, something Josue and Noah were talking about. Tatum, I think his experience in winning a championship taught him how to play with really good players and basically get in where you fit in. The things that Tatum, I think, has just cultivated over time to be really exceptional at, you don't necessarily need those things in order to win a gold medal. I think Tatum's playmaking needs to continue to evolve. I think his ability to defend multiple positions, something I thought he did a good job with this year, that too needs to evolve. I think there's certain aspects of his game that don't necessarily get the clicks or the credit that they deserve, that he, I think, is a little bit more locked into doing. And to be frank and candid with you, I think at the end of the day, Tatum wants to be as complete a player as possible. And his body of work has indicated clearly that he can knock down shots. We know he can score. We know he can rebound. He's a really good rebounder. But it's the playmaking, it's the defense. Those seem to be like the next chapters in his narrative that he needs to really bolster. And I think the Olympics is a great opportunity for him to do that. And he's going to be surrounded by guys who actually are looking for someone to feed them the rock. As you guys pointed out, you got a bunch of number ones all over the place, alphas galore. Who's going to get them the rock? That's why a guy like Derrick White is so valuable to a team like this, because Derrick will come in and be like, okay, y'all want to shoot? All right, I'm good. I don't need to shoot. I'm so good with that. And Tatum is like that as well. But the problem that teams have is you can see, if Derrick White is in there facilitating, you play for that because he's probably not going to be looking to score much. Tatum scares the crap out of you because he can drop 30 on you in 3 minutes. He can also drop 6, 7, 8 dimes on you in 3 minutes. So he creates a much more of a matchup problem in a certain way that they may not necessarily do if you had Derrick White out there or if you had Devin Booker out there who can score, but he's not defending no one. You can, whatever he gets offensively, you're going to get it back at the other end of the floor. So, okay, enough Devin Booker slander. I'm going to stop.
Yeah, for real. Booker, you need to work on
your defense. 3 times, Sherrod. 3 times. I'm just saying.
That's what this podcast is about.
I've been waiting for this moment to open up this particular box and just let it out.
I will say it's funny. He took Jaylen's spot in All-NBA. He's probably the guy if you were going to put Jaylen on this roster. And 4 Celtics feels a little much out of the 12.
Bobby, Jaylen Brown is going to go into the season with what our good friend Gary Washburn will call a suckers list of folks that he is going to take out one by one. I guarantee you, when they play the Suns,
that's such a Gary thing.
One of Jaylen Brown's best games all season. And people
I thought you were gonna. I thought you were gonna say receipts, but yeah, that's the Gary way. That's Gary's version of a receipt. Yeah.
Notepad of Booker,
suckers list,
and check them off one by one. He's gonna have a list.
Maybe.
Yo, it might not just be for players too, right? It might even be Stephen A. might be on that list too. He's gonna have his list going into next season for sure. Knicks, he doesn't forget.
The Knicks might catch a stray from Jaylen Brown because of Stephen A.'s affinity for the Knicks.
Yeah, I'm here for it, man. I am here for it. You already know I want to see the Celtics Knicks Eastern Conference Finals. That's the dream. If these guys stay healthy, which they should, that should happen. We'll see.
By the way, it looks
we'll see
like
what Philly does. But yeah,
opening night's gonna be Heat Celtics. It looks like. I think
I don't think that's accurate.
On. You don't think so?
I don't think so because the season actually starts 5 days before that. I don't see a world where the Celtics don't play for the first 5 days as the defending champs. And that was the exact date and opponent of last year's season. So I think that the author of that article, I'm not sure what his sources are, but I think that he might have just looked it up and saw last year's start date because a couple of Celtics comms, people like Mark D'Amico have been coming out being like, none of the dates have confirmed for next season. So
yeah, because things are pushed back because of the Olympics though, right?
I thought Wick might have spilled the beans on that one. That'd be fun if that was what it was going to be, but we'll see. But anyway, Tatum appeared in a story in Sports Illustrated and was on the cover. I know a bunch of people talking to Bob Cousy right now as well. He was a big part of that story. I want to talk about like that.
The Great Gatsby, but yeah, go ahead.
But first, want to give a shout out here to HelloFresh, and HelloFresh is very near and dear to my heart. Josue loves it. Sherrod,
so
one of the biggest HelloFresh fans as well. Have you guys gotten your boxes yet?
No, not yet, man. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
So mine came in on Wednesday. And I wasted no time. I made 2 of the meals the first night.
Yeah, I don't blame you, man. It's so good.
There was a shrimp spaghetti dish that was amazing that night as well. Good spicy butter within that as well. And then, yesterday made fish tacos that came out amazing. I've always wanted to make fish tacos at home. HelloFresh gave me all the ingredients I needed to do it. And here's the thing. You're looking for your cabbage or whatever you might need to throw in there. It's all available to you in the box when it comes. It's all pre-portioned. You just got to rip open those packages, apply the amount that's in the instructions, and you're good to go. Some of these meals are ready that they have in under 15 minutes. So I don't want to go too far into this, but this is just how much I love HelloFresh. Why?
HelloFresh was Bobby in his happy space.
Oh my God. I was so happy the last couple of days cooking with them.
Yeah, he's a foodie for sure.
It's like he hit the game-winning shot in Game 7. Look at that face.
Absolutely. And
damn, game-winning shot in Game 7. That's pretty happy.
They're America's #1 meal kit for a reason. Here's the deal. You can get the kind of boxes you want. You can get them delivered when you want. They'll specialize the dietary needs you have. I know Noah, vegan route. They'll do that for her as well. Sherrod, he's all about the meatloaf. So they're gonna send guy. They're gonna send him the meat.
Protein.
I'm a fish guy, so I go the fish route. Josue, what's your go-to?
I usually go protein or pasta. One time I told them, hey, I'm a huge pasta lover, and they sent me all pasta, which is okay. But yeah,
and that's the thing. They'll customize it for you. They got quick and easy recipes. If you don't have the time, as I mentioned, some of those ready in under 20 minutes, fit and wholesome. You got under 650 calorie meals in there. They got pretty much anything you can imagine in terms of what you need, what you want. They got Taste of Summer series, so they're always switching up the recipes seasonally. And again, they'll send it right to your door when you need it. So go to HelloFresh.com. I didn't mention this. They threw in a couple muffins with mine. They got all kinds of different appetizers, again, seasonally, that they'll throw in for life right now when you sign up. So go to HelloFresh.com/gardenapps and get free appetizers for life as long as you're subscribed to HelloFresh. That's one appetizer per box while your subscription's active for life at HelloFresh.com/gardenapps. Again, HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. I could go on and on about them, but go over there and find out more and try it out for yourself.
Wait till I get my delivery, man. I'll be talking about it.
All right. Tatum, SI. The big thing, obviously, here, Josue, as we've talked about for, I don't know, the whole time we've done the Garden Report, 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah, pretty much.
The Tatum-Brown relationship, and of course, Tatum asked about it again here. Actually opens up a little bit about it. I've tried asking him a million times, Josue, and he doesn't say any of this to me. But with Chris Mannix and SI, he admits he probably should have had Brown's back a little bit more publicly in the past. He said, I've always told him maybe I could have done a better job of voicing my feelings in the public eye. He always knew I wanted him here. I would always tell him, man, I don't get involved with any of the talks. I never go to Brad and want to move any player. Or I want this guy or I want this guy out. I show up and I want to do my job and play basketball. And looking back in those moments, I didn't know how that could affect somebody because I was never in that situation. I feel like maybe I could have done a better job publicly saying, no, we don't want anybody. We want JB. I was always like, I want to stay out of it. And that obviously goes back most directly to the Durant saga in my mind. They had him floating out there in that trade rumor all summer a couple of years ago. And in my mind, Brad needed to come out, say something. Tatum coming out and saying something during that time would have helped. But that put Brown in a weird position going into that next year. And obviously he had a lot of comments throughout that season about his comfort level in Boston, having to sacrifice. Looked like we might see Brown go to free agency, but ultimately he gets all NBA that year, gets the Supermax, Finals MVP at this point, and the rest is history. So these guys are going to play together for a long time. But Tatum and Manning, I think something we talked about, Josue, here, they just needed to address it. And yes, they could have done it in private, and they did, as Tatum talked about here. But publicly, they allowed a lot of stuff to fester there that they could have put to bed pretty quickly if they just addressed it publicly.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've been saying that for years. I think there's two parts of it. I mean, that part I agree with Tatum in the sense of, hey, we speak to one another. We have a different type of relationship. It's not always in front of cameras, but there's a relationship there. Sure. I'm glad Tatum would come out now and say that. But the other part of it is when it comes to the rumors and all that stuff that was going around. Like, it seemed like if there's a top tier superstar available, all of a sudden Jaylen was thrown into these type of these deals that there's a lot of chatter out there. I'm kind of with Tatum staying out of that stuff, because I just think once you start commenting on those type of things, if something happens down the road, it's like, well, you said this and that. It gives off the image that Tatum has a whole lot of say of what the front office wants to do with the roster. So I agree with Tatum not chiming in on that, saying, hey guys, we're not going to trade Jaylen, this and that, because then it sends off the message that, oh, I'm in those type of conversations. Oh yeah, that Derrick White trade, did you have a say in that, or did you have a say in the other deal? So I think
that's what he wanted to avoid.
Exactly. I think that was the right thing. I think it would have sent a lot of mixed signals out there, including one to Jaylen, being like, well, Jaylen's thinking to himself, well, what do you have to do with this? You know what I mean? Like, do you have a say in this? It would have sent out the wrong message. So I think Tatum did the right thing and staying out of that type of dialogue, staying out of those conversations, not putting out the wrong image. And, in terms of like, yeah, could he have made it seem like they're better friends than what it looks like? Sure. I guess it would have helped things, but hey, it all worked out in the end. And like you said, Bobby, they're still going to be competing for years, from now. Each player got their max deal. They both deserved it. And we can't wait to see this whole thing unfold. Can they turn this thing into a dynasty? But yeah, looking back on it though, yeah, it's interesting to hear Tatum say all this now in this conversation with Sports Illustrated.
What do you make of it, Noah? Oh, go ahead, Sherrod.
No, you got it.
No, what I was going to say is, I think, first of all, there's a lot of different things that you can say. And one of them is like acting like you're part of the front office. But there's other ways to express support that are a lot more subtle and position you as a player and not as a part of the decision making. And I even thought that after the Celtics got eliminated last playoff run by the Heat, Tatum, in the post-game presser made very clear that he wanted Jaylen Brown to be in Boston long term. And I don't know the impact of that statement, but he has done that, and you can see the reflection. I think one thing that was funny about his statement for SI was, I had never been in that position, so I didn't think how that could affect someone. I just think that's take the basketball out. That's just a wild line, because you're basically just saying you don't know how to experience empathy for someone that is not in your position. So I thought that was just a weird thing to say. I know he meant it in a nice way, but it just was like, we never get peeks into their personality. So to me, that was just ironic, because anybody could guess that it would suck to be in that position, Jaylen Brown's position. So that was just one thing that I thought about. But I do think that Tatum has had time to reflect and think a lot about his role. And I don't think it's a passive one. I think being passive, and like I'd probably disagree with what you think, Josue, about him. But it's better for him to kind of remove himself from the equation. Like, regardless of whether or not it's fair or he wants to, like, all of these guys are stars and they have an enormous platform for social issues, for team issues, for all sorts of things. And so always the decision to just sit out of stuff has a consequence. And I think in this case, part of what he's doing now, like saying to SI that he was happy that Jaylen Brown won Finals MVP and that he felt like he had been snubbed from things in the past. Like, would it have killed him in the past to say, I think Jaylen Brown should have been all NBA, or should have, like, stuff like that goes a long way. And I don't think that he was always great at making those statements.
And Jaylen's been willing to do that for him.
Yeah. And so, and that's so I actually really liked hearing these comments from him. And I think they show growth on a personal level, just thinking about, like, my voice actually carries a lot of weight, and things that I say publicly can actually really alleviate burdens on others. And you don't have to experience those things to be able to imagine or empathize, like, how someone else might be impacted by those things.
Yeah, there's an unwritten but very real contract that you sign on to when you become the face of the franchise. And often that contract involves you speaking out on things that may, in the eyes of many, be above your pay grade. Tatum, you got to do that. And when you don't do that, that's when problems arise. You can do that without people necessarily attaching you with the decision-making process of your organization. I mean, if you're asked a question about Jaylen, you can it's easy to say, well, Brad, and the guys in the front office, they make those final calls. But I can say this, me and Jaylen playing together, we win a lot of games. You've seen that. We've won at a high level. There are ways that you can cushion that particular conversation and discourse in a way that acknowledges how much you feel about Jaylen in terms of winning games, which is really ultimately what this comes down to. And keep a certain amount of distance between yourself and at least the perceived, or the perception rather, of you as a decision maker. I mean, like, look at LeBron James. I mean, it's clear and undeniable the impact that he has made on
I
every
was gonna say,
organization.
what about him? Right?
Literally, I mean, whether
There's
you
two
want to
ends
talk
to the
about
spectrum, right?
favoritism, nepotism, it's all part of the package with LeBron.
Shout out
And
to Bronny.
yeah, and I won't shout him out the way Jaylen shouted him out, but that's another story.
Hey,
That's
that's a
another
private
conversation for another day. But
conversation.
I am
Man.
not hating on
Yeah,
Jaylen for
100%.
that assessment. I am not. In fact, I'm not hating on him at all for that.
Sherrod's like, in fact, facts.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I'm gonna focus on Tatum for now. Tatum, I just think Tatum is being authentically who he is, and part of that in those particular moments was to kind of recoil yourself and take yourself out of that. And to Noah's point, it is surprising that he can't actually envision this being a problem for someone else. It's like it's really not that big a stretch to think that might make someone uncomfortable.
We were screaming it at the time. We're like, say something at many
Yeah.
different points, actually.
Right.
And as recently as this
alone,
past
though.
season.
Right. But he wasn't alone in that. I mean, the Celtics, they also, it felt as though they left, Jaylen out there to dry. Because, I mean, you think about the big names that have been come about in the last 4 or 5 years. When you talk about Kevin Durant, don't forget about Jimmy Butler. Don't forget about, Bradley Beal, which I thought, to me, that was the moment when I was clear as day that Tatum has zero impact or certainly influence on the decision-making of the organization. Because Bill is his boy. That's literally his guy from when he was like yay big. And if there's an opportunity to add somebody that you literally grew up with and your team doesn't even blink at them, you are clearly not trying to influence that decision. And I think for Tatum, to me, that was a great example of when he realized, well, that's my boy and I love him to death, but this ain't going to work if he's on this team. It's much better with me and Jaylen. And so I'm going to do what I've always done and keep my damn mouth shut and just let them do what they do. I think it would have been interesting to see what would have happened if they were seriously contemplating moving Jaylen. Would that be the moment that Tatum had a conversation with Brad and be like, nah, we shouldn't do this? Or would he still remain quiet? To me, that's the moment where that loyalty, love, whatever you want to call it for Jaylen will be put to the test. But other than that, Tatum's going to keep doing what Tatum does, and that is ball out and every now and then speak on it, but hardly ever speak on it the way we think he should speak on it or articulate how he feels about it. Because what he said in the SI article, I think is really how a lot of us were thinking, you got to feel this way about him, right? Right. And it wasn't until the SI article we said, oh, yeah, I probably should have said more publicly. It's better late than never. Yeah, we sometimes forget Tatum is still only 26 years old, and he's still figuring out a lot of this stuff about how to, be a leader. And this is part of that growth curve.
Yeah, and I like them acknowledging some of their on-court difficulties too. Figured out we need each other, learned how to coexist, be the best version of ourselves in order for this all to work. We weren't the best playmakers early in our careers. We developed into guys that really bleed the game. We want to be a good example of guys that play on both ends of the floor and guys who are the best teammates that we can be. So it's kind of how I felt about it on the court too.
Time. He acknowledged what we've been saying for years, and I love him for that. I love him for that. Better late than never.
Absolutely. So you can go check out that article on SI. I want to hit on this too quickly because it is kind of a big deal, even though it's not the biggest Celtic story ever. But the TV rights came out, and I know some people are bummed about TNT losing the rights, mostly because the inside the NBA pregame, halftime, postgame show probably going away at this point. Now, I guess Charles Barkley, Sherrod, said he's had some conversations with some of the other TV networks that have gotten the rights here, namely Amazon and NBC. So maybe they rework this show somewhere else. Maybe some of the guys reunite in a different location here. But this does feel like an end of an era with TNT going down. And I don't know what to expect from NBC. You probably remember the old NBC broadcast, Sherrod. I don't know if it's going to be the same thing or similar or what that was like. And then Amazon's a whole new world. You're going to have to be logging in your account on your smart TV to figure out how to watch those games. And they're not going to have a ton of games, but they're going to be that third broadcaster alongside ESPN and NBC at this point. So I don't know. What do you make of all this, Sherrod? And is it going to be better, worse for viewers' experience here as the Celtics are certainly going to be on many of these national TV games in the next handful of years.
I think it's going to be worse because you're first of all the players that the NBA has partnered with from a TV rights standpoint, TNT has been just the most consistently elite of the bunch. When you look at with Ernie, Charles, Shaq, Chuck, those guys, they have been the standard that every other on-air grouping has tried to be. And knowing that this is going to be their last year as they're currently constructed is
What's
going
up,
to
Sherrod?
Oh God.
Yeah.
Jimmy. Bobby,
Jimmy?
Hey, Jimmy.
Lock the door. We let anybody in. Man.
Hold on,
Wait,
Jimmy.
Hey,
Do we need to give you a test before you come in here?
You just crashed it.
Somewhere?
Dude, you crashing the show? Damn it. All right, I'm out.
Oh, hell yeah. There it is, Sherrod.
Forgot the
Sherrod, what were you saying?
Where are you? In Jurassic Park? What's going on?
No, I'm at my parents' place by the pool, all right? Damn it. No one even brought it up until Jimmy comes on, of course.
30
First thing out of his mouth. The most Jimmy thing ever.
To get Jimmy up to speed.
With the sun glaring.
By the way, our Paris correspondent coming up for the Olympics, Jimmy Toscano, is going to be on the ground out there.
That's right.
Yeah, I get the USA.
Me and Bobby are both going to the
USA
Olympics.
representing over here.
Yeah. So
Me and
look out
Bobby
for
are
me and
representing
Jimmy.
overseas.
Are you going too?
Wait.
That's what's up, Jimmy. I didn't know that.
What do you want to hit on, Jimmy? We talked a little Tatum. We talked a little Team USA.
Yo, this better be good.
We're kicking around TNT losing the
All right,
rights.
Sherrod,
We'll
sorry
give you
to cut
picks.
you off.
I'm sorry, Noah. This is wild, but yeah, go ahead, Jimmy. What are you gonna say?
What do you want to hit on, Jimmy? We'll give you a
Hi,
topic
Noah.
here.
Hi, Noah. Sorry to interrupt. You guys
No,
continue.
why
I'm
are
just
you
gonna
guys
listen.
apologizing to me?
Because
Why am I
this
getting
is just
apologies?
this is so Jimmy, and this only happens here. So I'm sure you're like, what is going on right now?
Only on the Garden Report.
Yeah,
Come on, Jimmy.
This is media. This is what we
Give
do.
us-
What other podcast does this for real? Yeah, exactly.
give us
sure.
Off-season mode.
Give us something, Jimmy. What do you got?
What are you
got
guys
a take
talking
on
about?
something?
Wait,
We got
what am I-
Tatum. We got Team USA. We got TNT.
This dude.
Well, okay. Well, we're
Unbelievable.
talking.
I thought he came in with like a particular thing that
On a
was
Saturday
bugging him that he
morning.
was-
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. Exactly.
I had
Right.
something to say.
Coming in here like WWE style. Like, come on, man. What do you
Just
got?
like, all right, what's everyone doing?
Yeah, right.
I didn't
We
get
just
the. I didn't.
Played your
I didn't get.
intro. Go ahead, man.
I didn't get the memo of the time start here. I pop on Instagram. I see Bobby's live. I'm like, what the f? So I hopped on immediately to make sure that I could,
Just
I
immediately
could join
jumped
the
on.
party. Yeah,
With his phenomenal shirt on. I love it.
I got the phenomenal shirt. I'm representing.
Jimmy, they're
Sherrod's
trying to
representing with the hard hats.
Jimmy, they're trying to shut down inside the NBA. What are we going to do about this?
By the way, guys,
That's what
hard
we're
hats are
at.
still on sale. Thank you, Sherrod.
I love how you're still plugging those.
The TNT stuff is sad to me. I mean, we all love what the product that TNT puts out there.
It's the best.
We all love the whether it's pregame, halftime show, postgame. You know, that crew is just unbelievable. So that's sad. I mean, if you're a fan, like it's one of those like Chuck's statement kind of summed it up nicely. Like it's a sad day for the fans. Like it's about money and whatever. Like at the end of the day, we all know that the business side of things is going to rear its ugly head and win out, I guess. But anyone who's a fan of the NBA over the last 20 years or whatever has like those guys are like almost like they're in your living room. They're like part of your extended family. If you're an NBA fan, you grew up watching the game, you look forward to their reactions. They call it like they see it too. They don't, sugarcoat things. They don't beat around the bush. They all understand the game. A lot, obviously former players. And then you've got Ernie, who's just like unbelievable in his role and like the camaraderie that they get. I think we honestly like our show is like a offshoot of that show. I feel like we have some similar vibes in a way where we're like friendly.
If Amazon wants to call
So
us
true.
in, we're ready.
That's right. We're ready. We might have to be the new TNT after the season's over, but
only like this, only Zoom version. Like, I can
only
see that.
the internet version. I hope that those guys can still figure out a way to keep it going in some capacity. I don't know if they're going to end up on different networks, but it would be a shame to just not have that some version of that show because it's just such a great thing. And so it's sad, but NBC is going to do an amazing job with the coverage. Obviously they're Sherrod looks a little surprised by that, but I think they're going to, I think I'm excited to get the NBC theme song back for NBC or NBA and NBC.
Why is everyone
Very
assuming
exciting.
that though?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they
Because
own
it's
it.
a
but
layup. It's a
all
layup.
that
No pun
matters.
intended. But
Ish. That's a horrible idea.
Someone's got to
round
get
ball
a check
rock.
for that.
Come on, but
They gotta have. They're gonna modernize whatever they do. They have to, because if they try to bring back what they did in the '80s, that's gonna be a problem.
But the '80s, like, come on. I mean, that was
It won't be
before
the
our
same.
time. But
Won't be the same vibes.
Yeah.
what do you
Clyde
want?
Drexler
Some, like
doesn't want to do that to us,
AI
okay?
EDM version of it? Like, come on, give me like the original stuff. You know, I want
You're
some-
probably not that far off. Actually,
Yeah, I was just
it's
gonna
probably
say.
going to be something like that.
sad. Really.
Yeah, there's not too much to say about it. It is a little bit of a bummer, but maybe those guys will reunite somewhere else. Maybe we'll get something
Freaking
new. I know
Amazon.
Dwayne Wade's on with Noah Eagle for the Olympics. Maybe we'll see those guys with NBC. I'm with
Yo, why was
Sherrod, though.
Snoop
I
Dogg
don't.
there? Sorry, I just thought of that right now. He was at the opening ceremony. Like, why is
He was
Snoop
lighting the
everywhere?
torch. Who better to light the torch than Snoop
What is he?
Dogg?
Is he an Olympian? Does he have anything to do with sports? Like, what is? It's just so
It's just-
random. Snoop
Dogg.
being there. Like, why is
Yeah,
America
yeah, I
so
know.
random sometimes? Like, it's just a random thing to do. But all right.
Because
He's
Josue,
got history
when you
with
saw Snoop,
lighting it
what
up.
did you do? You watched. What are they looking for? Eyeballs. Boom.
Viewers, I guess
Yeah.
that's true. Man, he does have like 17 endorsements.
Snoop,
endorsement
Snoop can
deals.
pass the torch if you know what I mean.
I was
Josue.
just gonna say, no one better. All right,
I
before we
figured there's
go
a
off
joke in
the
there
rails
somewhere.
here,
I figured.
I have some rapid fire questions
Before?
to close us out. We're very close to veering off the rails, but we're still on. Rocket
Yeah.
Money, want to give them a shout out. They're back with us here on the Garden Report. CLNS Media, great sponsor. Right now, you can cancel your unwanted subscriptions with Rocket Money. How much do you think you're paying in subscriptions every month, Jimmy? Probably more than you think. Over 74% of subscriptions get forgotten, or 74%
I'm
of
not gonna use
people
my joke.
have subscriptions they've forgotten about. I definitely did. And thanks to Rocket Money, I'm no longer wasting money on the ones I forgot about. Most Americans think they spend about $62 per month on subscriptions, but
I
the real
wish.
number is closer to 300, as Jimmy knows. This is literally thousands a year, and it adds up. You go month to month, you let it go, and the year
Yeah.
goes by, and like you said, it's thousands of dollars.
You don't look at your credit card statement for a couple months because you just don't want to, and then you realize, oh my god, these are all automatically just coming back
Yo.
here.
I just
So, yeah.
stopped paying Calm.
You start using
Go ahead.
you start using Rocket Money, and they'll find things you didn't even know about, things you forgot about, and that certainly happened to me. Helped me cancel the ones I didn't want anymore. So Rocket Money is a personal finance app. There's more than this, but that's the big feature right there that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. They'll monitor your spending. They'll help you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. You have full control over your subscriptions with a clear view of expenses. You can see all the subscriptions in one place and help you cancel with a few taps. Love the dashboard that tracks the month's spending compared to last month, so you can see how much you're saving month to month as you start to knock some of these things off. They'll even try and negotiate lower bills for you. Of course, newspapers, sometimes they'll offer you a lower price if you go to cancel, stuff like that. That's what makes Rocket Money great. They'll just handle it for you in one app, one location. They have over 5 million users that have saved a total of 500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year using all the app's features. So stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/garden. That's rocketmoney.com/garden. rocketmoney.com/garden. So here's some rapid fire ones. I'll throw it to you guys in a row before we get out of here. Some summer topics. What this could be your best offseason move, or maybe even your favorite offseason move for the Celtics so far. We'll start with Josue. Which do you think is going to have the biggest impact going forward? Which one was your favorite if you want to go that direction?
Well, biggest impact, it's got to be re-signing Tatum for sure. But my favorite one was signing Derrick White. I just thought that was super important for these guys to get done. And unbeknownst to me, Brad went out and signed everyone else, like maybe not every single person, but not only the rotation, but the depth at the center position, which is super important going into next season without Kristaps Porzingis. So A+ effort for sure for Brad Stevens, but that one was my favorite. I thought Derrick White, man, was someone that you had to get down, and for that figure, I think is such a bargain when you look at where the NBA is heading in the next few years. The kind of money that could have been offered to him on the open market, you avoid all that, and you have a really special player who's going into his prime right now. So that's my favorite move for sure. But overall, just A+ work for Brad, just to sign not only again the entire rotation from the finals team, the championship team, but also the three centers at the depth spot at the center position. That's huge.
I was gonna say Derrick White's extension. I think that was the singular most impactful, and I guess it wasn't a sure thing, right? I think we were thinking maybe it happens this summer, maybe it doesn't. Tatum's felt inevitable. But I think the other one that I like, maybe just to pick a more under the radar one, is just bring the combination of bringing back Keita and Luke. I guess the two centers that maybe nobody really cares about outside of Boston, but
outside of Bobby,
I think there are two outside of Bobby. Yeah. And then I think just bringing those two guys back on minimums. I do think there was a little bit of a
surprised I didn't have to say it
for them. Yeah,
I am too.
And I think that was it's impactful, and especially with Porzingis being hurt next year, like there's so much about the Celtics defense that is complex, and just to be able to bring in the same guys and not have a learning curve there, I think will be really, really helpful.
Sherrod, what do you like?
Well, as far as impact, there's no question. Your best player, Tatum, getting him taken care of, which was a no-brainer. But to me, the deal that I like the most was actually the Sam Hauser re-signing. And the reason why, because when you look at the Celtics rotation, that the top 8 players, there's a certain interchangeability with most of those guys. But Sam brought a unique skill set to the game that they absolutely needed. I mean, this is a guy that is a career 42% three-point shooter. Those do not grow on trees. You're not going to find a lot of guys like that. And even though they drafted Baylor, Shireman, and they've got the Peterson kid up in G League, those guys aren't, to be candid, they're not on the same level as Sam. And with Sam, similar to Derrick White, you don't want to see him hit the open market because someone will overpay for him. And I think the deal that they were ultimately able to reach was one where Sam probably left some money on the table, but he got a tremendous amount of job security. And for someone who went undrafted to get the kind of money that he's going to be now getting once his new deal kicks in, that's life-changing. That's generational wealth. That for a guy that didn't get drafted into the NBA to, in a very short period of time, position yourself for generational wealth, and you got your firstborn coming in in a few weeks. The timing of all this is very good for Sam. So to me, that's the one deal that I feel good about, because I think of all the deals they got, that's the one that feels like the biggest bargain, that they're going to get the most bang for their buck. Derrick White he's going to earn that money. He's going to be a player whose salary and what he contributes will be fairly comparable. I think Sam is a guy that's going to exceed that, because as we saw in the playoffs, particularly in the finals, his game is evolving. All of a sudden, we're start seeing that, dribble, step in, mid-range shot. If Sam can start making that shot, he becomes a major problem, because now all of a sudden you can't just worry about closing out well on him, and that can limit him. Now, if you're closing out well and he steps in and can hit the mid-range and he's comfortable taking that shot, he becomes an even bigger threat offensively than he is right now.
What do you like, Jimmy?
Summer of Sam continues. I actually saw him last night. I was at our neighborhood bar, Pier 6, and he showed up with a couple friends. I was hoping that he was just going to buy around for the whole bar with, Mr. Moneybags, the new contract, but no.
It hasn't kicked in
yet. It hasn't started yet.
Yeah, that's true. He's good for him.
The
money management is important. So, but yeah, no, he actually was there, and obviously sticks out a little bit. But
now, if Pritchard was there, maybe a different story.
Yeah, exactly. Good answer, Sherrod. I'm gonna agree with Josue. I think the White signing, that was the most surprising, but in a good way. I think I was on the show with you guys, and I said, "Oh, there's no way that he's going to agree to an extension. He's going to wait and maximize his opportunities to make more money." But credit to Stevens, and I think credit to the Celtics organization for being a place that players are willing to maybe say, you know what, I like it here. I'm willing to sign the extension now instead of waiting until I can get maybe a little bit more. But who knows what's going to happen within that year. So I'm with Josue on that being my favorite one. Obviously, Tatum, Hauser, bringing the band back together. It's it's kind of like pick your poison in a way of which one you like the most. But the Celtics put themselves in a position where they are the favorites to repeat next year, and so I think we should all be pretty happy with all the signings that they made, re-signings or extensions.
Yeah, and I'll mix this one in with the next question here. I love the draft picks. Seeing them out at Summer League, first impression strong. Both look ready to go in small roles with the Celtics this year. And that stuff's important. You got to nail your draft picks with the cost of their roster and the direction they're going in. And Watson and Sharman both look pretty good out in Vegas. I'm especially excited about Watson, who we'll see when they add him on the two-way deal. It still hasn't happened yet, but feels inevitable at this point. Who do you think, Josue? It could be one of those guys, could be one of the other younger guys on the roster. We saw a lot of them out at Summer League. Who will surprise most on the Celtics this season, given the guys they have on the roster right now?
Man.
Surprise most.
Right? Honestly, my gut wants to say Keita. I'm thinking about those first couple of months of the season.
It's a good one.
Maybe he's just someone that averages, 7 rebounds or so or something. He gets thrust in there. All of a sudden, he's putting up, he's getting 16 to 17 minutes a game or something, and he's making the most of it just from the early start. But it's really hard to say right now. But yeah, I'll say Keita. F it, I think between him and Luke, obviously going to be a lot more minutes around to start, and maybe he gets out to a quick start off the bench again, just as a muscle guy, grabs a lot of rebounds and protects the rim.
I think I know Noah's answer.
I didn't even really have one. I was going to just say I think Keita's the only one that's really positioned to have a bigger role next year.
I did not expect that.
I thought you were going to show some love to Springer.
I did too, Bobby.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, though. I just don't know if we're talking early parts of the season. I don't know that he's going to have.
Could be any part of the season.
Yeah,
I got my answer.
I don't know. I just don't know that he has a pathway to more. That's why I'm like, I'm really high on him. I just don't know about this opportunity here in Boston next year. Like, someone's going to have to go down, which I don't hope for. But if they do, he's ready to go.
Who do you got, Jimmy?
What about Tillman? Tillman could have a bit of a role with.
That's a good answer.
Porzingis being out to start the year, and he stepped in, to some extent in the finals there, and he might be a guy. I mean, obviously he's got NBA experience already, so he's got a little bit of a leg up on some of the younger guys, the rookies and whatnot. So I would say it's his opportunity to lose, to be honest, with Tillman. I mean, he's obviously somebody that they like. They traded for him. They extended him. He seems like a good character guy for sure. You guys would know more than me, but based on what I've seen, at least from the outside. So that's my answer, Tillman.
Sherrod, who are you going with?
Yeah, Jimmy, you that's my pick too.
Nice.
And that was my pick from the beginning, simply because, remember, Tillman came mid-season. So he never had a chance to fully go through training camp with these guys and just really fully acclimate himself from day one. That's going to be to his benefit. People forget that Tillman, this is a guy who has been an NBA starter on a team that got to the playoffs, when he was in Memphis. So let's not pretend as if this is a guy that doesn't have a body of work that warrants him being in the mix to be a starter. And when you look at his overall game, it really does seem to be somewhere between Luke and Keita, where he's more physical than Luke. I don't think as polished offensively as Keita is. And Keita may seem raw, but every time I see Keita play, he gets buckets. He gets buckets. And they're not just, lob dunks. He actually has post moves that he's able to execute. And so to me, Tillman is the best of what each of those guys brings to the table. And then when you throw in the fact that he is experienced and he's only 25, 26 years old, it makes a lot of sense that he's a guy that's going to carve out a role for himself. And a role that I don't think anyone anticipates to any great extent. But as Noah pointed out and others have pointed out, with Porzingis being out, there's a golden opportunity for one of those bigs to really establish themselves at the start of the season. And I think Tillman's going to be that guy.
Last question I got for us here before we move on. USA, Serbia tomorrow. Probably have some coverage of that. But I want to revisit this question because I'm sure we're all thinking about it a little bit. It's probably the biggest question because everybody's back on the Celtics and there's not a ton of questions outside of the Porzingis thing with Boston, at least once the playoffs come around. Who are the 3 biggest threats to Boston? And this one's tough because a lot of them are in the West. Probably have to hedge a little bit. Who do you think comes out of the West with this question? But I'm revisiting it just because I'm starting to warm up on the Bucks a little bit. Wasn't high on them last year.
Why?
Didn't like how that season looked. Didn't like the Lillard fit a lot of the year. I know Middleton's had a couple of surgeries this offseason too, and that's not what you want to see if you're them. But I go back to Giannis. The motivation he's going to have, 2 off seasons or 2 playoffs where he's been injured, still has the ability to be the best player in the league. Coming off this Greece run, we'll see how he looks this summer. But they had some low-key additions too. Taurean Prince, good defender on the perimeter, can hit threes. Gary Trent Jr., don't know how they got him, good shooter. And they added DeLon Wright, a good backup point guard there, and they keep in Brook Lopez. So they, to me, I mean, Jimmy, they blew the Celtics out twice last year at home in a big way. So I think that's part of it, too.
But it didn't matter. It really never mattered.
Well, they never were able to get out of the first round because of all the injuries. Who knows how that would have gone in the playoffs if they were able to see them. But I got Milwaukee on my radar. The Thunder, of course, I'm high on in this year, and you got to throw the Knicks in there as well.
You took 2 of my teams.
Well, yeah, you can do the same ones.
Well, yeah, no, I was going to say New York, Philly, and OKC, just thinking off the top.
I'm torn on Philly right now.
I'm torn on them. I don't see them like
you have to say Philly though. Like
yeah, exactly. I feel like you have to, but I still don't think they can beat the Celtics in a series. You know, yeah, we have to wait to see how they evolve, how they blossom, and all that. You know,
let's see Porzingis though. If it's just Horford out there against Embiid and there's no depth that emerges behind them, we'll see. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that works. That works in their favor for sure. I mean, the fact that it'll be no Porzingis, you know, and I'm guessing we'll get at least one matchup, you know, before Christmas. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, New York has depth, you know, so I got to throw New York in there for sure. They're healthy this time, you know, this year. Well, they should be for the most part. I mean, they had like 7 guys out and they still stretched that playoff run, which is very impressive if you ask me. So they'll be hungry for more. And then, yeah, I'm with you, Bobby. OKC, I just think the Thunder are on a really great path right now. They were certainly one of the team that just popped out of, it seemed like out of nowhere, even though we all envisioned them getting it together, but I guess we didn't see it happening that quickly the way it did last year. So yeah, the fact that they added Muscle up front and Herrnstein, someone that who New York loved, like Knicks fans are going to really miss that dude, and he was I think he solved a lot of those defensive issues, rebounding issues that really hurt them in their playoff run, which nearly reached the Western Conference Finals. But yeah, those are my 3 teams. Yeah, OKC, New York, and Philly. I guess you have to throw them in there. So those are my 3.
Who you got, Noah?
I was going to say, I think New York's the team that out of the East is the clear, just best assembled roster. And I thought they showed a lot of encouraging signs last playoff run, despite being so limited. So I really do believe in New York. I think they could really challenge the Celtics. And then out of the West, I think we're still sleeping on Denver, honestly. Like, I feel like there's the sense that because they got eliminated last year and they lost some role players, and KCP is, a great player, but
Westbrook on board.
Yeah. And I don't know how that's going to fit. That's a little bit of a weird fit, but regardless, like, you have Jokic and Jamal Murray, who had a really difficult playoff run last year. Like, they were a really tough matchup for the Celtics before last year's playoffs, and I think they'll still be that this year. So that's just another team that's in the mix. But resonate a little bit with your Brooks comments. I just think that because that matchup never happened, Bobby, like, we kind of assumed the Celtics would have been a cakewalk, and it probably wouldn't have been. But and the Bucks also, I feel like, are being a little slept on because they didn't get better necessarily, but we never really saw them at full strength. So just some of the sleeper picks. I think it'll be, I mean, everything has to line up to win a championship, right? And so there's a lot of potential threats to the Celtics again. Like, I think some people are getting maybe overly confident about how easy it is to repeat, considering it really never happens. It doesn't happen very often, at least.
Hasn't happened the last 6 years. Who you guys, Sherrod?
Oh, well, I mean, the Knicks, to me, that's the no-brainer out of the East. They're clearly the next best team. When you look at the way, not only the additions they made, but just the way their roster is constructed. They have a lot of two-way versatile players now that, in many ways, they look a lot like Boston. I don't think are quite as talented or as deep, but they're very much some clear similarities. Out West, I think OKC is only going to get better. And picking up Hartenstein, as Josue pointed out, was a major get. I thought that when we go back and look at like the top 5, top 10 offseason signings, to me, that has to be in that list.
Huge.
Because it addresses a very clear need for what they, as a roster, I thought didn't quite have as much of as they needed in order to get over the hump. And my third team, and I'm a little surprised I haven't heard them mentioned.
You're going to say my team.
Minnesota.
Wow.
No, you didn't.
And here's why. First of all, it's not Phoenix because they have Devin Booker, and Minnesota has Ant Edwards. But beyond Anthony Edwards, you got McDaniels, you've got Cat, you've got the 6th man of the year, Naz Reid. You start looking at the pieces that they have, they're a pretty damn good team. And the bedrock of their team is defense. And we all know that at the end of the day, teams that typically, if you're going to lean one way or the other, whether it's offense or defense, those who tend to be a little bit more defensively strong are the ones that typically find their ways deep into the playoffs. And I do think Anthony Edwards is still a little bit burned about not getting further in the playoffs. I think he's going to come back with a different kind of focus. And this was the first year where it was clearly Anthony Edwards' team. And there's a bit of a transition that goes with that, particularly for someone like, Cat, who for as long as he was a Timberwolf, it was his team. And for him figuring out what his new role will be, for Anthony Edwards assuming that leadership role and owning it, and the guys around him recognizing that, it takes a little bit of an adjustment. I think they're going to be a better team than they were last year. And I would not be surprised if at the end of the day, it's Boston and Minnesota in the NBA Finals. Would not be surprised at all, because I think Minnesota has a lot of the pieces to be that last team standing out west. And the Celtics, to me, are the team to beat, not just in the East, but just in the NBA in whole, obviously as champions, but also in the way that their roster is constructed and the fact that all the moves that teams have made this offseason, I still don't feel as though anyone made enough moves to where you can put them on the same level, same plateau as the Celtics. And that says a lot about Brad Stevens and their ability to just keep a good thing going, but more importantly, keep a good thing together.
Looking back on it, I do kind of wish we saw that Minnesota-Boston series, especially the way the Dallas one went. Mavs never competed much in that series at all. Jimmy, I have a feeling you're going to throw in a team I'm thinking of too here that people are writing off a little bit, but they've battled the Celtics tough in the past.
You know who I'm going to say, Bobby? My Pacers.
I knew
it.
My Pacers out in the East. They were
just
the team
re-signed Andrew Nembhard, 3 years.
Nembhard, who looked like MJ out there against the Celtics. They re-signed Siakam, so they're going to have a full year of Siakam and whatever. And they were banged up too. Don't forget, Halliburton got hurt in that series against the Celtics. They're a young team. Miles Turner's been there forever. He's kind of like the heart and soul. They're one of those teams that definitely.
They got James Wiseman. We'll see how that goes.
They're on the up and up. Like when you talk about like you're talking about the Bucks, Bobby, like they're kind of just wavering in the middle somewhere, like as far as trending, but the Pacers are trending upwards. The Knicks should be trending upwards if they can stay healthy, I think.
Did you see Halliburton's GQ piece? He's talking about winning the championship there and the parade and all that.
That's exactly the mindset that you need to have if you're the leader of that team. And it's a hard place to play. Indy,
that dude just lives in dreamland. I love it. He's just in his own island.
Let him sleep, Josue. Let him sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. You're right. Okay, Halliburton. Cool.
But Indy is going to be one of those teams that makes it difficult for the Celtics in the East. I'm not even going to look out west. They can go so many different ways. But I agree with Noah, with Denver. I agree with Sherrod on Minnesota. You're
throwing Denver in there?
Yeah, because again, I think they just ran out of gas. It's like Noah said, it's really, really hard to repeat. And they went really deep. Obviously, they went all the way. And that quick turnaround and trying to deal with some of the you have that target on your back. It's going to be hard for the Celtics. They're going to have a similar difficult run, I think, that Denver had, and it's going to come down to stamina in the end. Obviously, they're built to win another one, but we'll see. But in the East, the Celtics are going to have to go through the East before they have to worry about anyone out west. So I'm looking at Indy. I'm looking at New York. I mean, I think we have to say Philly, but I think we all kind of look at Philly and just kind of like brush them off a little bit.
It's fun, though. It's
fun. Yeah, exactly. It's fun. It makes the rivalry is fun, but watch out for Indy. They're a running gun team. They're going to try to run you off the floor. They're going to prance and dance like we see them do. And if they can stay healthy, they're going to be a tough out for sure.
Nobody mentioned Miami?
No.
I didn't even mention them last year, damn it.
I forgot that they even existed.
No,
So
I
do
was.
the
I feel like I was
fans.
overly obsessed with Miami last year, and so now I have to like not bring them up. I was so concerned about them heading into the playoffs.
They are always in my mind, so I'll put them honorable mention.
Not anymore.
And I was gonna say,
Yeah.
Sherrod, I was gonna mention Minnesota, but I just didn't want to bring up Anthony Edwards again. So, and I knew that would entail the whole discussion. So, I think Minnesota's great. I really believe in them the way they're constructed. They have everything you need to win a championship, in my opinion.
And they played
I just
Boston
couldn't open
tough
the door.
last year.
Yeah.
I think the 5 teams that played Boston tough last year are the toughest. Were Denver, Minnesota, Oklahoma again, Indiana, as well as Milwaukee.
Maybe the Bucks.
Milwaukee.
Yeah.
They
That's the
blew them
5.
out bad in those 2 home games. I was up there for one of them. Where the
Well, one of
Celtics
them was
did
like a
great
schedule
job.
loss, I feel like. But the
Yeah,
other
it
one,
was.
not so
It was
much.
like the 5th game in 7 days. Or
Philly
something
does
like
have
that.
a decent roster though now. I mean, we'll
And
see
they
if
played the
Paul-
Celtics
don't
tough
trust-
early last year.
I mean, Maxey is a beast. So I mean, he's only getting better. You look at players who are gonna get better, and you kind of have to project their teams to be better. So that's why I say Indy. That's why like when you look at Philly, there's a couple guys that are trending upwards. You know, when you look at like Minnesota, Sherrod, like all those guys are trending upwards. So those are
I
the
thought
teams you look at.
That's
Cleveland
why you
played
have to
them well,
mention
too.
them. That's why you got to mention Philly, though, Jimmy, right? Because you're
Right.
talking about a player who's getting better, an all-star caliber player in Maxey, and then you add a Paul George who's, you
Right.
know,
He's a coin toss.
Yeah,
he's a coin
already-
toss. That's
He's
true.
who he
But-
is, but
But when there's
when he's-
Maxey there, though, it's sort of
Right.
it looks better than it did for the Bucks last summer
Yeah.
when they got Lillard. You know, because it was like, okay, you have you replaced Jrue with the all-star, an aging one at that, but
Who doesn't
you still
defend?
lost. You still lost Jrue, right? Who doesn't defend, and you never made up for that loss in Jrue Holiday. So this one's a little different, but we'll see.
Interesting. Yeah, the GM said no regrets about that trade in the Athletic, which I guess you have to say, given that they're running that team forward. Doc's get some new assistants. We'll see how that goes.
Byron
There's
Ham,
big-
one of those new assistants. Yep.
Yeah, and I like the 3 guys they brought in. I'm stunned they were able to get Trent. That's a good move. And Lopez still there. Middleton's got to stay healthy. He was solid last year, but 2 ankle surgeries this summer. It's just a killer for him physically right now. So
Especially for a guy who's not the most quick-footed, even when healthy.
yeah,
So.
their defense is a real question, and there's still some pieces to move around this summer. There's a bunch of free agents still out there. You can look them all up. We'll see where those guys end up. Tyus Jones probably the headliner among them. Plenty of trades to happen. This Larry Markkinen goes somewhere. So still some things floating around this summer, but the work's mostly done. We pretty much know who's going to be playing for who next year, especially on the Celtics. So we'll try to come up with some stuff to talk about as the summer progresses. Fortunately, we do have the Olympics, which is going to get us through August.
That's not a bad tease though, right there. You know, there you go. Some Larry Markkinen talk. You know, he's on the market.
So we got USA, Serbia tomorrow. Good way to start it off. It's a real opponent, MVP on the opposing side for the Celtics tomorrow.
Right.
11:15 Eastern. So you're going to have to get up early if you're out west, but we'll have some sort of coverage here. Thanks for stopping by, Jimmy. Pleasant surprise on this Saturday.
Crashing
glad
the
to be
show.
here.
I like
Glad
that.
to see the family
bad.
again.
Sherrod
Bobby, I'll
Blakely.
see you in Paris.
Yes, I'm taking
That's
off.
wild. You guys
Less than
gotta
a week.
send some good stuff. There you
Bucket
go.
hat Bobby in Europe. Will the
I don't.
bucket
Do I have
hat
to
be
wear
cool?
one of those? What are those French hats? Maybe I should get one of those.
Yo,
I
you
don't know what to call 'em.
Be very
You
careful.
should
You
get a
gotta-
blue one.
The internet lasts forever, Bobby. Just remember that.
Thank you, Sherrod, for
Jimmy-
being here. Good to
Jimmy
see
hopping
you,
on
Josue.
agenda free. I like it.
Yeah,
Same to you.
absolutely.
Same to you, Bobby.
That's my
Appreciate
life,
it.
bro.
And shout out to Noah. She's starting a podcast with CLNS Media.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
Welcome
Yo.
to the family.
Starting
Thank you.
soon.
Thank you.
When's the first one coming out, Noah?
Hopefully on Monday, depending on when
Alright.
my bus back from New York is.
Look out for that. Subscribe.
So
I think
everyone
that-
who's got the we got Boston shirts, that's pretty much an advertisement right there. There you go. That's huge.
And you want to hear something
Dude.
crazy? I was wearing the You Got Boston shirt on my train to New York. I get to Penn Station. 2 different people came up to me and were like, "Oh, you're starting that podcast, right?" I was like, "Oh, free advertising."
There we
Hey,
go.
see, that's what I'm saying. There you go.
fans,
Perfect. So
no
you
less
have
shout
this
out.
shirt.
They
Yeah.
travel well.
Exactly.
Oh yeah. Those are the ones that'll approach you for sure. And then it's great, but then you realize like, oh, you must be like a Celtics fanatic. Like, there's no casuals that
I
approach
know.
you. But that's what's up.
I
Speaking
know.
of t-shirts, hit the merch store, guys. Don't forget, we're selling t-shirts, mugs, hard
Oh,
hats.
fucking salesman
You gotta
Jimmy
rep-
over here.
We got a Red Sox t-shirt that's going to come out soon, too.
Yep, you got that all.
Jimmy's got all these markups and shit. He's ready for an October baseball. Okay,
we're gonna have a T-shirt out, at least one T-shirt out for the start of the regular season for Celtics. We're gonna have some stuff coming out.
Is it the Cornet one?
Yeah,
says Bobby with excited glee.
Yeah, it's definitely the Cornet one. Definitely the Cornet one.
Shop.clnsmedia.com. I'm gonna have to make that on my own. A rogue operation.
You might have to sell it out of the trunk of your car, to be completely honest. Yeah.
Shout out to our sponsors, Game Time. Go over there, use CLNS for $20 off. Ton of events going on, even just this weekend. Red Sox, Yankees, couple concerts going on that you'll see me at. As terms apply over there, use CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Go to HelloFresh. Jimmy, we had a big HelloFresh conversation. I hope you're getting your bucks. HelloFresh.com/GarnApps. Free appetizers for life in your subscription. I made some great stuff. I'm actually going to post them this afternoon. So you'll see what I was able to whip up with HelloFresh.com.
Free appetizers for life.
Absolutely. And Rocket Money, welcome back to them. Rocketmoney.com/garden is going to get you canceling your unwanted subscriptions. So go over there, rocketmoney.com/garden, and take control of your finances. That's it for today. Thanks to all these great people for joining us here. Fun show, even though there's not a ton to talk about this time of year. And again, we get Serbia, U.S. tomorrow. So looking forward to that.
Let's go, Team USA.
Let's
get some pride back.
Get some what?
Pride.
Oh, okay. All right.
You know, like pride, like up for your country, Josue, like USA.
No, I know.
Like,
I'm repping over here, kid.
I see it. I know. I love it. I love it right there. Love that.
Yeah, enjoy the trip, guys. If I don't see you, should be fun.
All right, and we will talk to you sometime next week. Stay tuned for that, and have a good rest of your weekend. Peace.
Everyone.
Wait, Amit's got an outro for us, I think.
No, he doesn't.
He said he was going to work on an outro.
He had a phenomenal game.
Forfeit's out. I think it's an auction.
That did not sound like a chair.
It was a freaking chair. It does sound like a chair.